smoking, it's a revolution. Revolution, revolution. Shots to your head, it's an execution. Execution, execution. It's being us versus the corrupt. Red dot, put a cross to your head. Let the Lord interrupt. Interrupt, interrupt. Gun smoking, it's a revolution. Revolution, revolution. Shots to your head, it's an execution. Execution, execution.
Hey, what up, Liberty Goons?
What's going on, John?
Man, big episode, Barley.
Oh, man, I can't wait.
Big episode.
We got some exciting stuff for you guys today, man.
Yeah, we are episode 19. I am John. That is Don. We are the Liberty Goons. I got that right this time. As you can see, Don has a new background. John has a new background. We are up in our game here at the Liberty Goons. Let's jump right into some news, buddy.
Yeah, man. Hurricane Helen looks like it's about to smash into our old stomping grounds, brother.
Yeah, Hurricane Helene is gearing up to be quite a freaking hurricane. Projections right now are a category 4, hitting somewhere between like Tallahassee and like further south in the Big Bend area. So our old confines of Dixie County and the ranch and all of that is going to get hit by a third hurricane this year.
It's crazy. I don't understand how you can get hit that many times within a short few months, dude. It's wild.
I don't fucking get it, man. Did you take care of those trees at my place the last time when you were down there?
I skipped out on that one.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. I'm going to have to call neighbor Jim. Shout out, Jim. If you could clean up those trees for me, I'd appreciate it. But T's and P's, thoughts and prayers to everybody in this hurricane's path. Don't try to, if you live in a mobile home or a shanty or a shack, or you live in the areas of Steinhatchee, Cedar Key, what else? What are those other areas down that way? All those coastal areas, you should probably get the fuck out of Dodge.
Yeah.
That storm surge is projected to be 15 to 20 feet. Hey, our good friend, Crazy Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, wow.
So her husband just sold $500,000 worth of Visa stock right before the Fed sued Visa.
Wild. It's like she knew something was going to happen, right?
It's like this happens over and over and over again, and nobody thinks anything about it. Like I don't fucking understand, man.
Yeah, man, it's wild to me that these politicians are allowed to get away with stuff like this over and over and over again. I mean, I saw her today. Somebody sent me a clip on CNN, and it was with Kamala Harris, and it was basically her going over rants, like talking about the economy, what she was going to do for the economy. And it was just nothing but like, I grew up as a middle class American. There's like no answers. I think it was what was the guy who did the first interview, or not first interview, the first debate with Joe Biden. What was that guy's name that was on there? What was the guy's name?
Oh God,
I'm drawing a blank now.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank too.
Anyways, it doesn't make a difference. It was just hilarious because she was like, no, she's just connecting with the public. And it's like, yeah, she's also stealing from the public. But,
right.
Okay.
Stealing from the public. Quick shout out to our title sponsor of the Liberty Goons, 2A Watches. You can get yours at 2awatchcompany.com. Our watches are in the mail, Don Welch, and I'm excited.
I can't wait to get it.
To wear that bling. Also, shout out to the people that keep us powered through the episode, Ranch Fuel, and our people over at Zemo. Next episode, we are going to have a discount code for you from the fellows over at Zemo. Appreciate y'all.
15%, right?
15%. You and I were just talking about this a little bit ago, Don, but Trump and Harris are neck and neck, with the battleground states of Pennsylvania and Georgia being really, really tight. I am not going to make the joke that I want to make right there, but showing Trump up by a point in Georgia and practically tied in the state of Pennsylvania. I think this shit is going to be close, which is going to lead me to say you should probably watch the Liberty Goons coverage on election night because it is sure to be a fire night.
Oh yeah, it's crazy to me too because like he's winning in Arizona by 5, right? And Pennsylvania, I re-looked at it again today, and Kamala Harris was basically up nothing. It was like she was like a 0.7. But I mean, typically with these elections, everybody knows the Rust Belt. They heavily favor Democrats in the polling. So actually, I don't think he's doing too bad. I think that,
No, I think we're good as of today.
I mean, if you guys get up off your ass and have that no compromise mindset and go vote, so make sure you guys register to go vote.
Get your no compromise T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Sorry, I got to pop in the Zemo. Another crazy wild news today. China fired a intercontinental ballistic missile into the Pacific Ocean. Everything was within all international law parameters and everything, but it was their first test in decades.
Yeah,
that's a sign, Don Welch?
That's frightening. Yeah, I mean, everybody's hoping and praying to God Kamala wins, so the dictators can dictate. That's essentially what's happening right now.
Dictators can dictate. Ain't that the freaking truth? I think China's something that you and I'll be keeping a close eye on as we inch towards election day here. But I just found that to be interesting that 40 days out from the election and this is going on. So, in the last piece of news, we're going to wait for the details on it. But the oral argument started in the 10th Circuit in New Mexico. New Mexico sensitive places legislation. But the reason we're going to pause on that is because, as we told you on the last episode, we have a special guest.
Oh, yeah.
Introducing everyone to Mr. Bill Sack.
Woo! How you doing, brother?
Boys, how are you? Good to be here.
Fantastic,
good, man.
We greatly appreciate you coming on, man. We can't wait to hear all types of exciting 2A news and legislation from you, man. We're super
Let's
excited.
do it. I got 2A news coming out of my ears.
I love it. I'm going to do your brief 2-line bio here. Stop me if I fuck any of it up. Bill is the current director of legal operations for the Second Amendment Foundation, also a practicing attorney, and is the former director of legal operations for Firearms Policy Coalition. Is that all correct? Or did I lie?
Accurate.
That's
all accurate stuff. Yep.
So Googled.
Through facts.
It worked.
We don't like to ask people for their bios ahead of time because we like to just make some shit up every once in a while. So
yeah,
and see if anybody catches us on it.
Yes. I also took the silver medal in ice dancing at the Lillehammer Olympics.
What a ball!
Awesome, man. So Don, why don't you start us off, buddy?
Yeah, man. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like where you grew up? Are you into firearms? Obviously, we know you're in all the legalities with firearms, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you are into firearms. So if you are, how did you get into that? And I mean, most importantly, like what drew you to this? What drew you to wanting to work with the Second Amendment Foundation?
Sure. Yeah. So, so my name is Bill Sack. I'm director of legal operations here at SAF. I am from and currently live in the greater Philadelphia area. I'm out in the suburbs outside of Philadelphia. I am a practicing attorney out here in Pennsylvania. I've been with SAF for just about a year and a half now. Just coming up on a year in this role. And I've worked in the 2A space for about 5 years total, almost the entirety of my legal career. In fact, I went to law school late in life as kind of career 2.0. and was really lucky and blessed to be able to do this sort of work pretty much fresh out of law school. I grew up here in the suburbs in a very non-gun friendly area. You know, it's a pretty, kind of typical central, like centrist liberal. Everybody I grew up around was a Democrat sort of neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So just, guns were not really a thing around here. I've since moved a little further out of the city into more of kind of a purple neighborhood. It was, a GOP neighborhood for a long time, but over the last decade or so, it's kind of gone purple. But I've liked shooting kind of casually for my whole life. But I really got into it seriously about 15 years or so ago, when I first moved back to this area, having lived on the West Coast for 10 years before that, kind of came back to this area and, was kind of starting over again, starting fresh. And one of the things that I couldn't easily do when I lived in California was go shooting all the time. So now that I was back home and could take advantage, I did. And started accumulating guns and going shooting twice a week, and haven't looked back since then.
Sounds like my story. I moved from California as well to Florida and accumulated a lot of firearms in a short period of time.
It happens.
Damn Californians.
Once you get into guns, man, I tell people this all the time. Like, if you buy one and you go shoot, it's like, be prepared to just empty out your bank account, because once you get sucked into it, it's like all day long you're like, oh well, I got everything I need, and then you start looking, you're like, oh, maybe not, and it just becomes just like crazy, like insane effect on the human brain where you just get sucked into it. It's like the bug,
every time
bug bites
I think I have everything I need, SHOT Show happens and 4 new things are released, and I go, damn it. God damn it, they're going to get my money again. All right,
I know.
Fine.
And I'm a sucker for 2011, so like,
me too.
Oh God, it's
so like, yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah,
yeah.
In fact, the picture behind me, the Lauren Mitschke picture that I have behind me, he's the artist. It's Val Kilmer's classic Doc Holliday, but
I was just about to comment on it.
He's got 2 Chambers Customs 2011s in his hands.
Oh, I didn't see that. Awesome. That's why I said I got one for each of you. But earlier when we were talking, you guys didn't see that part. But yeah, man, that's awesome. So I heard. Well, I was reading information on you, and I saw that you were a veteran. So what branch did you serve in?
Not me, brother. Not a veteran.
I told you we make shit up. I told you. I prefaced this already that we make shit up sometimes.
Don't set me up for stolen valor. No, I got flat feet and diabetes. They don't want me in the service.
Oh, you're diabetic?
I am diabetic, yeah.
I got news for you.
Are we pump brothers? Yeah, man.
That's crazy.
That's a different definition of pump brothers than I'm familiar with.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah, I did the same thing with Matt LaRosiere from Fudbusters. He's a buddy of mine and former colleague, and he's on the Sugar Retard crew too. So
that's awesome. Well, I'm sorry about that. That's what the information that I was reading on the internet. So I
wonder. Yeah, maybe there's another Bill Sack out there who served, but no. Not me. Not me.
That's interesting. Okay. So, well then. I mean, how did you get into this? What made you decide that you wanted to be part of like the 2A space as far as the legal side goes?
So even before I was really into guns, I was always very strongly libertarian leaning. As soon as I kind of figured out what my beliefs were politically, by high school or so, I figured out pretty quickly that the libertarian perspective in general was just the one that I really connected with, and I'm kind of a natural contrarian, and any opportunity I have had in my life to tell any authority figure to go fuck themselves, I have taken advantage of that. And so libertarianism was kind of the most obvious fit. And then, when I got into shooting, more seriously as an adult, I would go like with my dad, we would go to the local indoor ranges and, just like rent pistols and screw around. But when I really got into it and started training and started carrying and really, became like, an active gun owner, and started paying more attention to the 2A legal space. I knew it was something that I was interested in. And then I had the very good luck of knowing, our current executive director, Adam Kraut, cause he's another local guy. And I actually knew Adam, before, we both went to law school, when he was the general manager of a local gun shop near me. And I used to buy guns from that shop. And, so we were friendly acquaintances all the way going back. And pretty much within 6 months or so out of graduating from law school and passing the bar, Adam posted a job opening that, he was building a legal team and was looking for young attorneys who wanted to come fight the good fight. And I happened to be looking for a job, and it was kind of right place, right time. I was able to slide into something that I actually cared about fresh out of law school, which was awesome. real lucky.
Yeah, man. That's like the stars just aligned, brother.
Right?
That's awesome. Yeah.
So speaking of law school, how much did you guys talk about the Second Amendment in law school?
I can tell you that we talked about the Second Amendment in law school whenever I brought it up, and never any other time. I mean, I actually commented in my con law class. Our textbook discussed Heller and McDonald, and that was it. And the discussions were very brief. And I kind of said, like, hey, like, is that it? Like, is that where there's nothing else to talk about? And the answer was kind of like, that's it, man. Like, there's no other major cases that we want to talk about, and there's nothing else relevant here. And I said, okay, well, that kind of feels like a short shrift. I mean, as we're all used to the Second Amendment being treated as the redheaded stepchild of the Bill of Rights.
Yeah. I mean, that pretty much answers my follow-up question to that too, was if 2A was spoken about in a positive light in law school. So I guess that is a no-ish.
It was kind of spoken about begrudgingly, like we studied it briefly. But it certainly wasn't supportive. And I definitely got the feeling that the majority of the con law professors were not particularly pro-gun. I had some lively debates with them about it. And in fact, I was inspired to start the Second Amendment club at Widener University, which is where both Adam and I went to law school. Because, there was a First Amendment, I forget what they called them, First Amendment club or something, whatever they called, the extracurricular clubs at the law school. But there was not one for the Second Amendment. And I kind of decided I was going to push the envelope a little bit and try to create something there that would have a little bit of a lasting legacy in the Second Amendment space, and also kind of force the staff to allow it because they couldn't say no.
Yeah.
And found a great professor who was willing to be our sponsor, and went and built that. I have no idea if it still exists today, but the inaugural year of the Second Amendment Club at Widener Law School was because of me.
That's awesome.
Love that. I'm going to travel down here to Lehigh University, and I'm going to start the first 10th Amendment Club. It's
good idea.
It's my second favorite.
I do have a question for you, because we knew that you went to Widener. So, like, you said that you joined, like, you basically created this Second Amendment club. Like, when you were talking to people to try to join it, like, how did those conversations go? I'm just curious.
So, I mean, as is typical in so many spaces these days, you kind of figure out pretty quickly, like, who's on what team. And, so Widener is down in Wilmington, but it's outside of Wilmington. It's kind of in like Farmville, Wilmington, not in downtown Wilmington, Delaware. So we had a pretty 50-50 split, I think, like within my class of, folks who were more traditional conservative. We had, a lot of law enforcement folks, a lot of veterans, family, people who came from law enforcement families or just generally from a conservative perspective. And then we also had people coming from more typical liberal perspectives. But it was a pretty even mix. So, amongst the conservative type folks, it wasn't a stretch to get people to show up to a Second Amendment focused group. So
that's honestly badass, because I honestly didn't think that I thought it would be very, very far and few between. Just from talking to college students now, I'm just like, wow, like it's crazy how brainwashed they are on constitutional law. It's crazy.
I have a feeling that that's probably exacerbated the most at like the big city schools.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Widener was not at all big or in a city, so we kind of benefited from having a little bit of a more diverse ideological class.
As diverse as Delaware gets.
Yes, exactly. The thriving metropolis of Wilmington, Delaware.
Let's transition into some of the things that you've kind of overseen during your tenure at both FPC and SAF. If you had to go out on a limb and just say what you think your biggest win has been so far in the 2A space, where would you lean?
Ooh, biggest win in the 2A space. That's hard. I mean, I think in the post Bruen world, we've had a lot of great wins, which is really exciting. So I guess I'll answer this in two ways. So I think SAF's biggest win, which predates me by 20 years, 15 years or so, was McDonald versus City of Chicago. I'd be remiss if I don't mention this. So Second Amendment Foundation was one of the primary organizational plaintiffs in McDonald versus City of Chicago. And that is, probably, I don't want to say the most important case, because obviously Heller and Bruen are super important. But what McDonald did is allowed us to kind of kick the doors open, and almost all of the current lawsuits that we're involved in, which are against state, local, and municipal laws, are only possible because of McDonald. So what McDonald did, kind of in layman's terms, is applied the Second Amendment to the states.
Yeah.
It incorporated the Second Amendment under the 14th Amendment. So Heller was a huge step in the right direction, right? Like getting the Supreme Court to say that the Second Amendment is an individual right disconnected from militia service is huge. Mm-hmm. But up to and past Heller, it only applied to the feds. So it was only instances where the federal government was infringing on your rights could we go and sue and wave Heller around. What McDonald did is said, now the states can't infringe on you either. So we're involved in 57 active lawsuits right now, and I think 54 of them are against states and localities, which are only possible because of McDonald. So that's easily the biggest win from a SAF perspective. The biggest win that I've been a part of, probably some of the sensitive places. So concealed carry is a big one for me. I think the ability to have your firearm on you when you need it most is probably the biggest issue that we have right now. I think in terms of really linking back to, even going kind of further back than the Second Amendment itself, but the natural right of effective self-defense is a human right. And it's a right that we're all born with. And regardless of which gun you choose, you have to be able to have a gun on you and with you when the moment strikes, when, that one god-awful thing happens to you in your life, and you need to be able to defend yourself. So going after these, we call them the Bruen response bills, these sensitive places bills that have been passed all over the country, and knocking those down one after another. That's probably been the biggest win for me, that I've been pleased to be a part of. Obviously we've got, major cases that are percolating on assault weapons and magazine capacity, and those are huge too. And we'll talk about those more tonight, I'm sure. But for me, getting some of the exciting wins on the carry cases, the sensitive places cases, and because it also kind of epitomizes the gamesmanship that we see from the states. Like these are the typical states, New Jersey and Maryland and Massachusetts and California, the ones that before Bruen, 99.9% of carry permits were denied, right? So Bruen comes out and says, you guys can't pull that shit anymore. You have to give the average law-abiding, peaceable individual their permit. And these states are, kind of drag kicking and screaming into shall issue permitting regimes.
Can we put that in?
They said, all right, well, now that we have to give everybody a permit.
Shall issue.
Yeah, shall issue, right.
Yeah.
So now that everybody has to get their permit and they're doing their best to drag their feet on that too, they decided to just, to create 37 different categories of sensitive places that, overlap and include every single square inch of the state, to say like, okay, well, even those that have their carry permits can't carry in schools and casinos and restaurants that serve alcohol and public parks and within 1,000 feet of a parade route and in any sort of private establishment open to the public unless there's a posted sign or you have some sort of oral consent from the property owner, all sorts of nonsense. So, they're doing everything they can to avoid the demands of Bruen in the Second Amendment. So to be able to smack them down for that it's fun. It is fun.
It's crazy. I'm just like curious why they keep trying. Like they know that they're going to end up losing. I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't get it. Like, obviously, I mean, and I guess in that point, I mean, what do you want to talk about the 10th Circuit right now with New Mexico and kind of go over everything that's going on there?
Well, I think you're talking about the issue kind of broadly because there's multiple cases going on. There's a Ninth Circuit case too that we just filed our petition for en banc review, which is May v. Bonta. May is in Reno May, your fellow content creator in Christ, Reno May. All of these cases, you really do appreciate that, the other side is not above engaging in gamesmanship. And a lot of it is when you look at it objectively and you pay attention to the space over a longer arc of time, it almost seems silly. Like when you look back, even before Bruen, and before Heller rather, the big push for gun control back pre-Heller were handgun bans.
Yeah.
What Heller was about was a handgun ban in the District of Columbia. And, the gun grabbers wanted to take handguns away because they said, the bulk of violent crime committed with firearms is committed with handguns. It's overwhelmingly in, one of 12 inner cities. And so that's what they wanted to get. They said, the real problem is these concealable weapons, this urban crime. This is the problem. We want to ban handguns. And then Heller came out and said, well, the handgun is the quintessential firearm for self-defense.
Yeah. So
they went, okay, shit. So handguns are protected by the Second Amendment. Okay. So then literally, like within 24 hours, right, they pulled a 180 and they said, long guns are the most dangerous firearms out there. They are weapons of war. We need to get rid of the rifles.
Yep.
Because the rifles are the problem because they're too powerful and they have very dangerous collapsible stocks. And God help you if there's a flash hider on the front or a vertical grip. I mean, my God, the pearl clutching. Similarly, they said, well, the Second Amendment only protects militia service. And then when Heller came out and said, no, it's an individual right. Well, now they said, okay, well, instead of only protecting firearms associated with militia service, now firearms that are associated with militia service are outside of the Second Amendment. This is another current argument that we're seeing out of courts like the Seventh Circuit in our Harrell case that are trying to avoid doing the Bruen analysis entirely by saying that AR-15s are not even arms. I'm doing the air quotes. Are not even arms under the Second Amendment. And so the Bruen analysis doesn't apply because they're not arms, because they're for military use only. So they're not appropriate for self-defense in the eyes of the unelected bureaucrats of the Seventh Circuit.
It's weird. It's like they almost forget about like shall not infringe. They just kind of skip over that part.
So much bending over backwards and squinting really hard to try to make the shortest and clearest written amendment in the Bill of Rights somehow complicated. It's pretty wild. It's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy. So my question to you is, I mean, obviously all of these court cases are extremely important. I mean, we know with Gun Owners of America, obviously you guys with Second Amendment Foundation, FPC, the list goes on. But right now, what do you think the biggest win could possibly be for the Second Amendment right now? And that doesn't matter if it's in federal court or in a circuit court, or if it's maybe the potential to lead up to the Supreme Court.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy answer there is the Bianchi case, which is now called Snope. The plaintiffs swapped out, so the caption changed. So the case, which is now called Snope, it was called Bianchi, is the challenge to the Maryland assault weapons ban. SAF is a plaintiff in that case. That is one of our cases. That case is currently up on petition for certiorari with the Supreme Court. It is the first assault weapons ban case that is up before the Supreme Court on the merits. So we think that it's a really clean and attractive vehicle to have the Supreme Court rule on the assault weapons ban issue once and for all. It has been scheduled for conference. I think it's October something. So we are hoping that the court takes up the assault weapons ban issue finally. And it's indicated in the past that it's interested in taking this up and clearing up the issue. But I think that's the most obvious win, is that, if we can get Bianchi up before the Supreme Court and they lay out the appropriate test that, or the appropriate application of the Heller and Bruen test to so-called assault weapons. A lot of air quotes tonight.
Yeah.
ARs and the like, and just, make clear that these things are very, very clearly and obviously protected by the Second Amendment.
It's kind of,
all the states that are trying to ban them and force you to register them and all that nonsense has got to go.
That's what I was going to say, because it's not just Maryland. I mean, it's New Jersey, it's Delaware, it's been Oregon. I mean,
Illinois,
California, and I don't think. I think there's a lot, because I talk to people at my job. I mean, I live in Texas, as you might be able to tell, but even conservative people that I work with, when I try to start talking to them about like gun cases, it's like they don't understand anything that's going on at all. They've never even heard of these cases, which I think is like a big problem, because it's just like you're getting your rights taken out from underneath you and you have no idea. It's kind of like the pistol brace rule, right? Like, well, here everybody I know owns a pistol brace. And then it's like, next thing you know, now you're going to the gun range and you got a pistol brace and the ATF agent's next to you, and whoop, now you're swept up. So it's
pistol braces are good again.
Yes.
Just for clarity's sake, pistol braces are good right now.
Yes,
nationally.
Yes.
You can.
Yes.
I shouldn't hide these down here.
No. Yes, you're correct. But what I'm saying though is, when it was happening, when that first hit. And they were saying, "Oh, just register and you get your $200 tax stamp for free." And it's just like, but most people didn't even know about that. Like the vast majority of people, I mean, unless you're people like us, yes, serious gun owners. But for the most part, I don't really feel like the average person, the average gun owner, I mean, even knows what's going on and what rights are even trying to get taken from them, until they wake up one day and the next thing you know, they're hemmed up. So it's kind of a frightening situation, I think. Like I don't really think people understand how close we really are to having just a tyrannical government You know, I mean, it could, you know, executive orders come through every single day. I just got into an argument with this guy who was saying, "Oh, well, they can't do this, or they can't ban this," and I'm like, brother, it doesn't mean that they're not going to try. It doesn't mean that they can't do executive orders. Yes, we get it. Bills get passed through Congress, but there's been all types of janky ass executive orders left and right that have stripped people away. Now, yes, with Bruen, we've been winning these cases, but it doesn't mean that it hasn't been happening and hasn't been happening for a very, very long time. So,
yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
unfortunate, Bill, that you even have a job, to be honest.
yeah, we
I
honestly wish you didn't.
I wish I didn't too.
We wish we
I wish I didn't too.
If the Second Amendment was treated like every other amendment, that you didn't lose when you crossed state lines or
Yes.
or made a modification to an inanimate object or whatever it may be, you know, we wouldn't even be in this situation. And Don, to your point, the amount of people that could possibly be hemmed up from most of this legislation that goes through is just astronomical. Yes, me, you, and everybody we know in the content creator space, we were very familiar with the pistol brace and bump stocks and, you know, carry laws from state to state and all that kind of stuff. But the average person has no fucking idea about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I was saying to Bill before you came on, Don, that like I had to make that detour around Maryland when I was traveling up from Florida. Dude, Joe Blow that lives in Dixie County in Florida, if he moves to Pennsylvania, has no idea he can't drive through Maryland.
Yeah, it has
like
no
that.
clue.
No clue. If he got pulled over with what I had in my truck, he's going to jail, straight to jail.
Yeah, and it's set up like that. I mean, it's perfectly, in my opinion, I think that it's all these laws have nothing to do with criminals because these laws are already on the books. These laws are purposely to hem up law-abiding citizens, and there's no way. I was reading one day, it's like the average person commits like 3 crimes a day and they don't even know about it. I mean,
Felonies, 3 felonies.
three,
a day.
yeah,
felonies.
3 felonies.
Yeah, there's a great book called 3 Felonies a Day.
Yeah. So it's like, you know, as a gun owner, like there's things that change. I mean, 1 second to the next, it seems like it's changing like all the time. It's been it's been a radical ride for the past 3.5 years. I mean, yes, there was some stuff underneath Trump. Obviously, we won the bump stock case, which is awesome. But that took, people don't realize that took like 6-7 years to even get to the Supreme Court to even win. And
yeah, frequently the process is the punishment, as they say.
Right.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, your job is the most non-instant gratification job there is. Like, very rarely are you submitting something and like the next day you're like, yay, we won. You know, it just doesn't work like that. You have to sit there and fight the good fight for months, years, different courts, different judges. I mean, that brings me to a question, and I know Don has the same question, is what is it like to fight your own government?
Yeah, that's
awesome.
That's one of the questions. I actually asked him this in a text. I was like, yo, we should ask him this. Yeah.
Oh, dude, it's the best part of the job. Telling the government no is awesome. And then when a court agrees with you,
even better.
Then it gets even better when then they have to pay your bills.
Yeah.
When the government has to write you a check. Oh, it's so good.
But I think that's why
it's so good.
I think that's why they make these drawn out for so long, because they're just hoping that you don't have enough money to keep going. I really do. I think that's the biggest part of why all this shit gets dragged out for so long. I think it's been internally designed that way to make people run out of money, you know?
Well, yeah, there's no question that they do it. They do it to, test your patience, to test your resources, to test your plaintiff's patience. Yeah, absolutely. To hope that the personnel on the Supreme Court changes before the case gets up there. There's no question that there's some shenanigans that happens in these courts. I mean, we have some of these circuit courts that are, waiting a year or more to issue opinions. The Fourth Circuit pulled a whole bunch of nonsense with the Bianchi case. I mean, they held oral arguments before a panel, so a 3-judge panel up on appeal. They made us wait like a year. Then the opinion was never released, and they sua sponte, which is Latin for on their own, spontaneously, said that they were going to take the case up en banc, which means the entire Fourth Circuit, without even releasing the panel opinion. So that's very, very, very bizarre. Usually the panel opinion comes out, and then if one side doesn't like it, they can ask the court to take the case en banc. And then the court votes if they want to do it. This time, the court didn't even allow the panel opinion to come out, which sure makes you wonder what that said. And stepped in and said, no, we're gonna come in and fix this, and we're gonna take this en banc on our own account. And then they made us wait again for a year or more. Again, just kicking the can.
It feels like the Ninth Circuit does that all the time too. It's like they're never going to take an en banc panel's opinion, like ever, unless it's what they want. I mean, at least in the Second Amendment realm, which it's wild to me that all of like they'll set up by their own rules, and they'll do everything by the rules when it comes to anything else other than the Second Amendment, and like that frustrates the shit out of me.
Well, yeah, I don't think the Ninth Circuit en banc has ever found in favor of the Second Amendment in the history of ever.
Yeah.
Like we're like O for infinity with the Ninth Circuit en banc. They're just that's who they are. They're
destroying a good judge in Benitez.
Yes. Well, yeah, I mean, Benitez is, I feel like that's the only reason why the Second Amendment is like even has a fighting chance half the time in California, because he seems like he's the only judge that's willing to judge in the favor of the Second Amendment, which is wild to me.
Well, I think that has changed in light of Bruen. I think what the Supreme Court did very, very well was put the circuit courts and the non-sympathetic, shall we say, district court judges in a straitjacket with explaining to them the proper application of the Heller test per Bruen. Like, this is how you have to do it. This is how it works. Cut it out with this intermediate scrutiny. Cut it out with the interest balancing. That is wrong. You guys have been doing it wrong for the past 10 years. This is how you have to do it. We have seen judges, even judges, that were appointed by Democratic presidents, who you can tell just from the way that they've handled themselves, either during oral arguments or in the substance of the opinions. You can tell that they don't want to rule in our favor, but they can't find a way out of it.
Yeah.
And we've gotten some begrudging wins from unexpected judges because, look, the test is the test. And the government, the burden's on the government to show that there's, historical analogs for gun control from the time of the ratification. And quite frankly, there just was not a whole lot of gun control in 1791.
Yeah.
So all of this modern gun control it just, you're going to have a real hard time if you're a government attorney. You're going to have to squint really hard and come up with some really creative analogy and apparently cite all sorts of former black codes and other racist laws and all sorts of other nonsense that they've cited in their favor,
right?
In trying to justify gun control.
I mean,
it's wild.
So, like, what I was specifically talking about, I feel like California judges, that's more what I meant. I mean, the Fifth Circuit, right? That's, Texas, like they've been really good for the most part, but even them recently, I think it was last week, maybe, even they ruled some crazy thing from like 17, or not, was it 17? I can't remember when it was. It was like, or not 17.
You said like 1756 or something like that, or 1576?
1576 about stealing horses, so that those people would get hung if they stole horses. I was like, what the hell does that have to do with the Second Amendment? It's like they'll come up with like random radical stuff, and I get it because obviously, if a person has committed a crime in the past, it's harder for these judges to say, okay, we're going to give you a win based on the Second Amendment, because that's going to make them look bad. I understand it, because it's not, we don't think that, but I think the outside world kind of sees that. And it makes it difficult because I'm like, yeah, but I don't give a shit if they committed a crime in the past now. Like, is this specific thing that they're doing, is that a crime? If it's not, then you should be judging based upon that. I mean, that's how I feel, and I just wish that more judges would do that. I mean, we've seen it, but then we get fucking terrible decisions like that from the Fifth Circuit, what kind of blew my mind when I heard that. So I don't know.
What so we're going into some territory now that's slightly uncharted. With obviously this court that we have now issued the Bruen decision, almost 2 years ago now, I guess it's been.
June 2022.
Yeah. So we've already seen in cases like Rahimi where they're starting to have to listen to their own guidance. And what do you think that looks like with some, like, I believe you guys have 2 writs right now before the Supreme Court?
Yeah, at least 2, but yeah, the Bianchi Snope case and the Gray Graham, the Delaware case. That petition was just filed, last week.
So
or the week before. Yeah.
Now these dissenting judges are basically handcuffed to the Bruen decision. Yet I have a feeling that they're not going to follow their own guidance. What does that look like in your mind?
Well, the tricky thing about the test under Bruen, the test itself is relatively clear. And I guess for your listeners, we should, lay out what that test is.
Sure.
Just for feeling like I'm doing my job here as an attorney. But remember, I might be an attorney, but I'm not your attorney. So what Bruen said is that the proper test, so to analyze if a piece of gun control legislation is constitutional under the Second Amendment or not, the first thing you do is you look and see if the conduct contemplated by the law falls within the plain text of the amendment. So is it about keeping arms? Is it about bearing arms? And then the corollaries that come from that, the ability to acquire, use, etc. If the conduct falls within the plain reading, the text of the amendment, then the burden shifts to the government, and the government has to show that there were historical analogs of similar gun control at the time of the founding that was considered constitutional. So you look at the late 1700s. 1791 being the year of the ratification, to look and see what sort of gun control regulation there was, and was there either the exact same type of regulation or something that is analogous. And when we say analogous, we're looking at the how the right is being infringed upon and the why the right is being infringed upon. So if the how and the why seem to be aligned with some sort of more modern piece of gun control, then it's possible that it's constitutional. If the government can't show that, and it can't show a historical tradition to that effect, not just a single outlier here or there, but a historical tradition, that sort of gun control was acceptable in the late 1700s, that it's unconstitutional under the Second Amendment. So that's what the Bruen test demands. Now, the problem is, now you have to do the historical inquiry, right? Mm-hmm. Like now it asks all judges to go back and become historians. So that's a bit of a tricky wicket, number one. And then 2 is it is not an easy black or white test when you talk about what is a sufficient analogy, what's sufficiently similar or sufficiently dissimilar, too far afield so that it doesn't count. And that's what I think Rahimi tried to do a little bit, was clarify that, like Rahimi said, you don't need a historical twin. You don't need the exact same sort of regulation. But you do need, some sort of analogous regulation that is similar both in the how and the why. in order to uphold modern gun control.
So question to you.
Yeah,
So question to you. So you said it's the judge's responsibility, because I thought it was. So I thought it was the government's responsibility to do that, not the judge.
So yes, so you're right. So the burden is on the government to put forth that evidence, but then the judge has to read the evidence and make heads or tails of it.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay, gotcha.
So the burden is very clearly on the government. You're absolutely right. So let's make that clear. The burden is on the government to make their case. They have to show that there is historical tradition of that sort of regulation at the time of the founding, and not just outliers, and not even if there was regulation at the time that was unconstitutional. If it was unconstitutional, then you can't cite it in support of new unconstitutional regulation. So it is absolutely the government's burden, but they're going to throw a bunch of stuff at the wall, and then the judge has to read it and decide, figure out what's legit, what's not, what sort of analogy is appropriate, what isn't, what counts as an outlier, what counts as a historical tradition. Those things, the judge ultimately has to come to a conclusion there. So that's what I meant is, it's not a cut and dry black and white sort of test. It does have some wiggle in the joints for judges to have to think hard about this and come to a reasoned conclusion.
So if I'm hearing you right, then even though obviously we're past Chevron deference, even in a circumstance where you would have had some sort of maybe ambiguity, right now we're leaning on the side of the rule of lenity no matter what, because the burden is 100% on the government to prove the historical analog.
So yes, you threw out a couple terms there. I feel like we can go through them one at a time. So, so in the vast majority of our litigation, Chevron deference does not apply. Sure. So Chevron deference was a legal doctrine that just went away, thankfully, that basically said that in instances where an administrative agency is interpreting its own regulations, that a reviewing federal district court should basically kind of put a thumb on the scale in favor of how the administrative agency interprets its own regulations. And so the problem with Chevron deference was a separation of powers problem. What it did is you had administrative agencies first writing regulations, because they get, in law school, we were always told, administrative agencies are creatures of statute. So Congress passes a law saying we here thereafter have created the EPA, and the EPA is in charge of doing good environmental stuff. Okay, go. And then the EPA, or whatever administrative agency that it is, for example, ATF, let's say, they get to then say, okay, we've got a mandate to create these regulations. Then they write the regulations. They fill in all the blanks that the statute doesn't specify. Like the statute might say, EPA, you're in charge of, creating regulations to ensure clean air and clean water. Go do that. They get to write the regulations. They also, as the administrative agency, interpret the regulations and enforce the regulations. So if, you're a FFL that is in violation of the zero tolerance policy of the Biden administration, or if you're an energy producer in Texas and you have violated some sort of EPA regulation, it's the EPA that's going to come after you. And then if you fight it, the first place you land is in administrative adjudicative court. So you end up in EPA court. So the administrative agency basically gets to write the law, enforce the law and then interpret the law. So they are doing all of the three things that the separation of powers as laid out in the Constitution is supposed to be:
for Congress and
legislative, executive, judicial. Now it's all under the executive. And so not only did it do that, but then Chevron deference then came in and said, even if you then appeal what the administrative court has done, when you go into real court, into federal court, the federal court's supposed to put a thumb on the scale and basically defer, hence deference, defer to what the administrative agency said. It was a big problem for a long time because it let administrative agencies like the ATF to say, well, we've interpreted our own rules and find that we are in the right. Shocking. And then you would go to federal court, and federal court would go, well, we're supposed to be deferential to what the administrative agency says about their own actions. And so you lose, kick rocks. So getting Chevron out of here was a great step in the right direction of returning some semblance of sanity to the separation of powers. That said, it's only applicable in our cases that are against the federal government, and typically in the Administrative Procedures Act context. So like when we challenge ATF regulations, like pistol brace, like frame and receiver rule, Chevron could have been a problem. It wasn't, thankfully, because while we were involved in those cases, the writing was already on the wall that Chevron was going to go away. And so ATF made very clear, like, hey, we're not relying on Chevron deference here, because they didn't want to hang their hat on it and then have it kicked out from under them. They lost on both of those cases anyway. But that's Chevron. You also, John, mentioned rule of lenity. And tell me if this is getting way too legal. Like,
no, this is awesome.
We're all for it. We're all for
it. So the rule of lenity is another legal doctrine that usually is found in the criminal law context. And so basically what the rule of lenity says is when a criminal law is ambiguous in some way, or it's ambiguous or vague in some way that the average reasonable citizen can't understand what's legal and what's not legal,
then racist.
Then the court should find in favor of the individual. That's what the rule of lenity is. So we see that frequently come up in pistol brace, for example, where when the, not the final rule, but the proposed rule, you guys worksheet death that came out,
trigger pull,
right. Like if the gun had sights, it was a point. If it didn't have the sights, it was a point. And if the gun, had a trigger, it was a point. All sorts of insanity. That would have been a great example for violating the rule of lenity. If the average person looks at that and goes, I can't understand where the line is between legal conduct and illegal conduct, then the courts are supposed to defer in favor of the individual. So that's what the rule of lenity is. So that will only come up in certain instances where we've got criminal stuff typically.
Sure. I feel like the rule of lenity. I feel like the rule of lenity should just apply to me in every single scenario when it comes to firearms, because I'm too fucking stupid to understand what some of these laws mean. So.
Well, I mean, and you want to come to the conclusion that that's on purpose, that like these lawmakers are purposefully trying to trick us. I think the reality 9 times out of 10 is that they're just incredibly dumb. They have no idea about anything gun related, and they're being handed bill drafts from Bloomberg and Everytown and Giffords, and they're not even reading them. Their staffers are going, we support this, sign it. And they go, okay, boss. And I mean, the bills themselves are often complete messes. I mean, typos. It's
all you have to do is watch one of those hearings and listen to them speak. even people on the right side of the 2A argument, listen to any of them speak about any of these issues, and you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you have
These are
zero
not
idea.
intellectual titans very frequently.
No,
You know.
yeah, it's crazy. I mean, I remember like Biden saying like, "Oh, if you attach a pistol or if you attach a brace to a pistol, you'll shoot a bigger round." And it's like, what the what the fuck are you talking about? Or what's her name saying from Texas? You know, R.I.P. But saying that that an AR rifle weighs as much as 5 moving boxes, and it's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what is what?
And right. And why is a heavier gun worse? I mean, just like not only is it wrong, but it's like aggressively stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a great moment in one of the hearings too, where I forget which congressman it was that couldn't understand the difference like between pistol braces and I think like forced reset triggers.
Bump stocks. It was bump stocks.
Bump stocks. And Thomas Massey is just like losing his mind. He's just like, you clearly don't even know.
It's the guy that had cancer that always used to wear the head wrap, and now he doesn't have cancer anymore or whatever. I can't think of the guy's name. Yeah, that guy is wild. He says some insane shit.
What do you think about? So we've got a couple cases in primarily red states with red governors and red houses. So let's take Florida for example. Right now, I don't think you guys are involved in this lawsuit, but I believe it was FPC that sued the state of Florida for open carry. I think that's what it was. How do you think these states that are now primarily controlled by 2A advocates are going to handle lawsuits that are attacking some of their either ages old gun laws or whatever it is? Is this a situation where the state goes, we're just not even going to fight this and we're going to get a default judgment on it?
We have seen that in certain instances. And, in some of these instances we've brought up, like you rightly bring up the 18 to 20 stuff. So one of the big pushes that we're making this year is going after carry permit eligibility in a lot of places, purchase eligibility in a lot of places where, for a long time there have been like weird dual tiers of Second Amendment applicability where when you're 18 to 20, you get a little nibble. And when you turn 21, well, now you're a real adult somehow. And now you actually get your rights and can get a carry permit or purchase your firearms. And that's just nakedly unconstitutional. 18-year-olds are adults in the eyes of the law. And they have the full vesting of their constitutional rights all up and down the Bill of Rights, including that pesky second one. And so, there are a lot of places where the only way to carry is with a permit, and the permits are 21 plus. So we're suing those places, all over the country and winning. There are places where, we do have, sympathetic either attorneys general or sympathetic local sheriffs who have said like, okay, look, either we're going to change it or we'll agree to a settlement, do something easy and quickly to fix it. They just kind of need somebody to sue so they have a little political cover, I think, frequently, so that they can say like, hey, we didn't do it. They sued us and, we had to let them win.
Well, I think that's what happened in Texas too, because we had the whole 18 to, whatever, you can't buy a rifle or whatnot. And then I know it went up to Ken Paxton. That's our attorney general. And then he basically like wiped his hands from it. I was like, oh yeah, I'm not going to deal with this lawsuit. And then I don't know what happened to it. I guess it's still like pending the Fifth Circuit. Like, I have no clue what's actually going on with that case at all. I kind of quit hearing about that, but I know that that's like a super big one that's on a lot of people's minds, especially young people, just for the simple fact that it's like, hey, if I'm 18 years old and I can go die for this country, like, why the fuck can't I buy a pistol or buy a rifle to protect myself?
You guys have pending litigation here in Pennsylvania, correct? On that same thing?
We have pending litigation on, we have 2 cases right now on carry permits. We have one on carry permits for non-prohibited people who are otherwise ineligible. So that case is called Suarez. And then we have a case that is an 18 to 20 case in PA. That case is called Brown. And we also have a case in PA which is appropriately called Green. And that case is about challenging the 922 G3 prohibition on the possession and ownership of firearms and ammunition by users of medical marijuana.
I started to catch on to that about midway through your sentence there. So, you're since you do live in Pennsylvania and so do I. You're not my lawyer, but you're a lawyer. Pennsylvania code doesn't specifically mention open carry. What's your advice there in Pennsylvania?
Yeah. So right. I'm a lawyer, but I'm not your lawyer. So this is not legal advice, but open carry is generally lawful in the state of Pennsylvania, with the exception of cities of the first class, which is Philadelphia. Assuming you are not otherwise a prohibited person and you lawfully own and possess your firearms, you can open carry anywhere in the state other than Philadelphia without a permit.
Except in your vehicle.
There are pretty strict limitations on your ability to transport, and that's actually one of the things that we currently have a win on, is getting the court did rule, and this case is up on appeal, that the vehicle prohibition is unconstitutional. So that's a case that is currently up on appeal. That's part of the Suarez case. So you can read more about that at the new and improved SAF.org.
Love it.
One of the other things that you can't do in terms of open carry in Pennsylvania is during declared states of emergency. You cannot open carry without a permit. We levied at least one case about that issue, because some of you may remember that we had a bit of a state of emergency that lasted 3 or 4 years recently. Mm-hmm. And so there was a declared state of emergency in the state of Pennsylvania for like 3 or 4 consecutive years. Before COVID, even, there was a declared state of emergency for the opioid crisis. So that severely limited the ability of anybody to open carry without a permit in PA. And that meant that those 18 to 20 kids who couldn't get a permit and now couldn't open carry because of a declared state of emergency that lasted forever, couldn't carry at all. So we brought a challenge to that, and we got that emergency carry ban thrown out. So, we're chipping away at these things. We're getting some traction and some wins. So those things are still going up on appeal. But we're making some headway for sure.
Do you see a near future with us as either having national reciprocity or any kind of maybe final judgment from the Supreme Court that says, look, everybody, you cannot not give people permits to carry?
Yeah, so the non-resident issue, that's what we refer to it as internally, is not non-resident carry. So being able to carry someplace other than the state in which you reside. We have at least one case, I think a few on that issue, and a couple more in the works. We recently were awarded a declaratory judgment in the state of California, requiring the entire state of California to now process non-resident permit applications. So that was a big win on that issue. I think realistically, we're probably going to, again, in that kind of, incremental chipping away at these things, I think we're probably more likely to see the requirement that each state grants non-resident permits for those few states that don't offer permit reciprocity already. the requirement is just going to be that, like, okay, you still have to get their permit. So, you know, if you're going to California and you want to carry in California, you have to get a California permit. And that does come with its own burdens because they love stacking the burdens and the fees against you. But at least now they have to process them. So that's a step in the right direction.
Right. There's just like so much that's involved in that too. You know, we were talking earlier about going from Pennsylvania to Jersey, and it's not just that I can't carry in Jersey without having a non-resident permit. It's the fact that I couldn't even, the gun that I normally carry, I couldn't even carry if I had a permit in New Jersey.
Or your bullets.
Or my bullets. Yes, exactly.
Because hollow point bullets are illegal in New Jersey. No, I mean, it happens every year. Some poor idiot drives over the Ben Franklin Bridge by accident and gets pulled over, and they find his carry gun, and they charge him for the gun. They charge him for the possession of the gun. They charge him for the high capacity magazine because, Glock 19. And then they charge him 15 times for each of the gold dots that he's got in his magazine because, you know, the evil exploding hollow point bullets are also banned in New Jersey. Shout out our New Jersey folks that are all carrying critical duty because, you know, the plastic plug in the front means it's not a hollow point, so they're okay.
So at least I'm okay there. I would get many of the other charges, but not that one. So I'd be good there. That's just wild to me. I can't even believe that we live in a world or a country where it's just, you want to talk about like ambiguous. Like you just don't know. You don't know these things. I know them because I'm careful about what I do because I don't feel like going to fucking jail. So I have to research this.
You also travel a lot more than what most people do.
Right.
You know, you got to think about it. These people that, you know, that maybe they travel like once every 2 years and they're on vacation with their family and, you know, fucking dad's got a Glock 19, as you say, you know, it tucked away. And next thing you know, he's driving on some state line that he's not allowed to, getting pulled over. It's just fucking crazy to me. I mean, it really is. Like, I don't see how the Second Amendment can stop from depending on what state you're in. Like, that's wild to me. Like, it's something I've never been able to understand. And, you know, I don't know. It aggravates the living fuck out of me, really.
So, all right. So I'm gonna provide a moment of positivity. Because yes, there is a lot to be frustrated about as a gun owner in this country. Plenty. However, I will point out that things are better now.
Yes, that's
than
true.
They ever have been in the last 100 years.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, let's remember, like, the Heller opinion came out in 2008. Like, this is all very new law. This is, and it's going in the right direction. It is going too slow, and it's not going in a straight line, but it is overwhelmingly going in the right direction. So in like the medium to long arc of history, we have a lot to feel good about. By no means is the fight over.
Yeah.
But going from not having any Supreme Court support up until 2008 to where we are now in 2024, where we've got 38 states, I think it might be 39 now, that have permitless carry or constitutional carry of some kind or another.
Yeah.
I mean, that is huge, massive steps in the right direction.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that too. And I'm not saying anything discouraging. I think the frustrating part is like, yes, we've been winning after Bruen. We started winning tons of cases just left and right. I think the frustration part is like when you see these bans, like, oh, now all of a sudden now there's a assault weapons ban or there's a magazine ban, and it's like that aggravates the shit out of me. Not just I live in a free state, so but the rest of these people or me traveling, it's something like, you know, you always got to think about. And it's like everybody just like saying fuck it, all hands on deck, we're throwing out all the cards, and if it burns down. I feel like that's what Democrats are trying to do, and I'm just like, well, good, I hope it all fucking burns down, you know.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not to say that things are overwhelmingly positive either.
Yeah.
But I think that what we see all the time, when I'm going through the voicemails and the emails, like the customer service type stuff, the member contact sort of stuff, when people write into us or submit a case on the new and improved SAF.org. From a macro perspective, things are going so well for the Second Amendment movement. But at the micro level, at the individual level, we are still seeing absolutely tragic, heartbreaking cases of individuals being persecuted. And when you're the one that is being persecuted, you're the one that is having your liberty taken away or your property taken away, being bankrupted by the process, even if you come out of it, without prison time.
I was about to say, or prison time, Matt Hoover.
Yeah.
Right.
Super.
Like those stories, where people's lives and families are absolutely shattered for, look, it's one thing if you do something horrible.
Sure.
It's another thing if they catch you on a technicality. If the barrel of your gun is a 1/4 inch too short, should you go to jail for 10 years? Is that moral? Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Of course not. So when we see those sorts of things, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And this change, while it's going in the right direction, can't come soon enough.
Yeah.
Absolutely, without question.
I'm hoping that
that's absolutely why we're constantly trying to push the envelope, push the gas pedal as far as we can down to the floor. Almost every new case that we bring, we try to bring some sort of emergency relief, like a TRO or a preliminary injunction motion, because that forces the court to move fast.
Yeah.
If we don't do that, everybody drags their feet and things take months and years. These cases take years anyway.
So my question to you is, what do you think is the biggest uphill case or battle that we are going to have as, part of the Second Amendment? Like, what do you think the hardest one to win is right now?
Good question. So, I'm pretty bullish on our assault weapons ban case. So I think we're in pretty good standing there. I mean, I don't want to jinx anything.
You heard it here on Liberty Guns.
Yeah.
We're looking good.
Thank God.
The court has hinted that they're interested in taking the issue. I think we've got the right case in front of them. I think the sensitive places cases are more difficult because each one of these different subcategories that the state governments are trying to craft require potentially different Bruin analysis, or the courts that are interested in squinting really hard to uphold this stuff. What we saw, for example, in May v. Bontar sensitive places case in California, half of the sensitive places got tossed as unconstitutional, but half of them were upheld.
Yeah.
How the court justified one half as good and one half as unconstitutional, looking at the same Bruin analysis, is very frustrating from our perspective and without justification as far as we're concerned. But I think that's, we're going to have to pick off those categories one at a time, or a couple at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to be, I think, somewhat slow going, and it's just going to be a slog. It's probably going to be frustrating. I think we're going to get there, but I think that one's, it's just going to be a pain in the butt. Probably same with non-resident stuff. It's just going to be a pain in the butt.
So since we have the AWB case, and obviously we have merits on it, so we know that the Supreme Court, that they basically, if you don't have final merits on it, they don't want to take up the case.
Right.
So now that we have, merits on this case, do you think obviously I know that you think that they're going to take it up. We all hope that they take it up, right? Do you think that we have the right judges in play? And let's say we do have the right judges in play. How quickly do you think that will be a change around? I mean, obviously we know it takes about 6 months, but do you think it will be an automatic, hey, hands off? Or do you think that other states are going to keep trying to play games with it?
Don't know. I mean, so, I hate trying to guess what the Supreme Court's going to do because it's very difficult. When you're looking at Supreme Court opinions, there is not only the outcome of the case, who wins and who loses, but kind of, is the scope of the opinion broad or is it narrow? Are they going to argue, or are they going to rule just on a very narrow issue, or are they going to make a broad pronouncement? So, for example, in Bruen, the court knocked down the New York may issue concealed carry permit regime, but it also said resoundingly and very clearly, there is a right to carry your gun outside of the home.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have to go that far, but they did.
Right.
So, the question with any of these cases, but certainly with the assault weapons case, is, one, are they going to take it? We hope. And then, if the outcome comes out the way that we think it will, based on, what the people on the court currently have said previously on the topic, the question is then, what do they say about it? How broad is it? And do they articulate it in a way that, again, like, you want to put these non-sympathetic courts, the courts like the Ninth Circuit, that are going to try to wiggle, they're going to wriggle. You got to, really put them in a straitjacket. So how is, the ruling articulated? How is the Bruen test applied? And is it done in a way that the courts can't come up with a new novel way of, coming up with something out of whole cloth and trying to avoid the mandates of the court once again? They'll figure out something.
Yeah, right. they always want to.
They always do. I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that your guys' work actually spreads to some other areas. We've seen recently with California and their parity law that they signed last week, that Newsom signed last week. It very much kind of parallels with the Second Amendment fight, and the each state can determine when it comes to constitutional issues what applies and what doesn't apply. And I think that this is a First Amendment case that very much matches up with a Second Amendment kind of fight that's going on right now. And so I thank you for fighting these fights, because I think it's going to help in other places too.
Yeah, so our mission is obviously Second Amendment focused, but we somewhat frequently will participate as amici and write amicus briefs in cases that are not in and of themselves directly 2A related, but do have kind of, as you're alluding to, broader constitutional implications. So if there's a case that hinges on the interpretation of the First Amendment, but if the interpretation, if a certain interpretation of the First Amendment is allowed, then lawmakers and courts in other jurisdictions could take that analysis and run with it in the Second Amendment context to our detriment.
Like the NRA,
then,
right, in New York, that's kind of similar to that, right?
The Vullo case,
yeah.
So we're going to call it 3 questions here, Don, that we're going to fire at Bill here to close this out. I've got one, so I'll ask the first one, and then you can go ahead with the last 2 that I know you want to ask there. That's on our sheet.
I'm looking at. I'm not even for sure I even see these questions. What questions am I asking?
It's the last 2. It's the last 2 on the list there.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, I gotcha.
All right, let me see if I can guess. All right, so the answer to number 1 is boxers, not brief. The answer to number 2 is an Alchemy Quantico high cap.
Oh, hey, there you go. That's my guy right there.
All right.
And the answer to number 3 is brunettes.
Oh,
how'd I
man.
do?
Well, I'm glad you didn't say brunettes for the second one when we actually ask you this question.
Yeah.
You'll see why here in a second.
My question is, so not only am I a member of the Liberty Goons here, but I also have my own channel, 2A Patriot Ranch, where we do gun reviews and gear reviews and all that kind of stuff. If it's SHTF, the world is collapsing around you with whatever happened. You get to take one handgun and 1 rifle. What are you taking?
Do these have to be things that I currently own,
No.
or this is like in the pantheon of things that exist?
Things that you were like, that's what I would want to have.
Okay. All right. So this is convenient because this is perfect because I can give Saf another plug. So we just launched a sweepstakes with Daniel Defense. They were very kind to provide us with a real slick, I forget what they call the model, but it's basically their 16-inch, or might be 14.5 pin and welded.
Like the DDM 4.7.
Yeah, like a DDM4, but it's got the RIS 3 rail. It comes decked. It's got loophole 1-6 on it and an offset dot. I think it even has a light on it already. It's the whole thing's Cerakoted peanut butter. That would work for me just fine. So that would work for me. So I would probably take like a 14.5 or a 12.5, 5.56 gun. I have a 11.5 Knights that I would probably that would work if I just had to pull something out of my closet. That'd be just fine.
That lawyer money is good.
Getting Gucci.
That lawyer money is good.
Yeah. Well, I fell ass backwards into that upper. I found a complete Knights upper at one of my local gun shops, and like threw it on a credit card during COVID because I needed to buy something to make the sadsies go away. So I bought a Knights gun. So pistol. I mean, my favorite handgun of all time is that Alchemy, the Alchemy Conoco High Cap, which is their 2011. It's been my carry gun for like the last 5 years, I think.
Don has a chub right now.
It's so good. I mean, like, if we're talking about like the rule of law has evaporated 6 months ago and like we're living in like complete hellscape, I'd probably just take my Glock 17. But like, yeah, assuming I had the maintenance I needed to keep up the 2011, I'd carry that. That thing's that's my baby.
I'm the exact same way, bro. Like I said this before. I mean,
we had this debate before on the channel.
I would bring my 2011 and let everybody can get mad at me, but that's what I'm bringing. It's my favorite gun. It's the gun I shoot all the time. I have literally like 5 of them, and that's what I'm comfortable with. So it's the best gun ever made. So.
And like I've never had any problems with that Alchemy. It's never failed me once.
Yeah.
And I don't baby it. It's got the wear to prove it. But no, that thing is, she's a shooter. She's a shooter. If I could have like a special mention, I might throw my MP5K in a backpack.
Ooh. Yeah.
All right.
Gucci.
I want to get my hands on the new Mac clone. I need to get my hands on one of those soon because they did a sub $1,000 MP5K clone.
They're sub 1,000 all over the place right now. I was seeing them on sale the other day. I seen them for even under 900, which I thought was crazy. So
the new thing I want for that is have you guys seen? I think it's called Lee Sporting. I think it's called. They make a MP5 and an MP5K lower that takes AR trigger groups.
Ooh.
So
you get the nice trigger instead of the shitty trigger.
Yeah. So yeah, like you can buy it and drop like a Geisley in it and just like, oh my God, I want it so bad.
I love that.
Yeah, that's sick. That's absolutely sick. Well,
all right, Don, I'll turn it over to you, buddy.
My question is to you, which I was glad that you didn't say brunettes for number 2. What are your thoughts on Kamala Harris and how big of a threat do you think that she could potentially be to our constitutional republic?
So, okay. So great question. So I will say first, just for clarity's sake, Second Amendment Foundation is a 50c3 nonprofit. So that means we are a non-political, non-partisan organization. We do not support any politicians. We do not generally speak on supporting or opposing legislation because we cannot. We're actually not allowed to with the type of nonprofit that we have. That being said, we can support or oppose proposed policies. Kamala Harris is on record and on video, for that matter. We've all seen the videos all over Instagram, saying repeatedly that she is for mandatory buybacks. She is for assault weapons bans. There's that video where she's on stage with Gavin Newsom when she was a district attorney in San Francisco, talking about, you may be a legal gun owner, but that's not going to stop us being the government from coming into your house to see where your gun is. Mm-hmm. I mean, if that's not terrifying, I don't know what is. So, I think her most recent attempts to try to soften that image with the whole, like, I'm a gun owner and Tim Walz is a gun owner, and, her transparently scripted off the cuff remarks with Oprah about, someone breaks into my house, I'm going to shoot them. Haha. I'm not buying it.
Yeah.
I think she's shown us over the course of, her political career exactly what she would like to do, insofar as taking people's guns away, regulating guns at the national level, banning the most popular long guns and some of the most popular guns in America. All of those policies are
horrendous.
Yes. dangerous, immoral, unconstitutional.
Yes.
And we'll certainly do everything that we can to oppose them at every turn.
Yeah. The crazy part to me is she said, "Oh, me and Tim Walz is a gun owner," and then the very next day she said, "I'm a gun owner and I believe in assault weapons bans and mandatory buybacks." And I was just like, wait, what?
Well, yeah.
What?
She said in the debate, she said, no one's coming for your guns. We should ban assault weapons. Like, in the same breath.
Like, how does
she said, no one's taking your guns, but we want to take away the most popular guns in the country.
Yeah. Over 20 million in America that we know of, probably way more than that. And then
as Judge Benitez rightly pointed out, there are more AR-15s in this country than there are F-150 pickup trucks.
There you go.
I have one pickup truck, and I have just behind me, I have 9 ARs.
I have one pickup truck, and you guys can't see it, but yeah, I won't get into how many, but
yeah, Texas, we get it.
Texas,
we see the hat.
Well, that's awesome because, I think that people, obviously, I think that it's, at least on this podcast here, we try to encourage people to go out and vote, but vote for their rights, right? We want you to make the best decision for your Second Amendment rights, all of your constitutional rights in general. But if you are a gun owner, we just urge you to go out and actually vote because this is so important, and we definitely want to keep spreading the two-way, what we grew up with, as gun owners, as, my grandfather gave to my father, gave to me, the first time I ever shot a gun was in 1911. And it's just like, I don't ever want to lose that. And, There you go. There you go. So it's super important to me, because I want to be able to, share this with my kids. So I encourage you guys to all go vote. Next question for you is, do you think that executive orders from a brown-haired person
from anybody,
or from any person, could be a significant threat to the Second Amendment this coming election cycle?
I think there's always the possibility. Even beyond.
God, that's not the answer I wanted to fucking
hear. I know.
The reality, even beyond the Second Amendment context, is what we've seen over the past 30 years, if not more, is an increasing consolidation of power in the executive branch. Mm-hmm. Congress has delegated so much of its authority because it's really inconvenient for them to actually have to do stuff and then have a record, which can then be used against them when they run for office. So they tend to not like to do anything because it impedes their ability to get reelected.
Yep.
And there is a certain limit to what the courts can do, even though, you know, in large part, they're doing their best. Well, in some cases anyway. But the consolidation of power in the executive branch, both in, you know, the form of unilateral executive action and in, you know, the massive administrative state that is currently running the country, what they might attempt should absolutely be frightening.
Yeah.
And that is, you know, the problem with that is, regardless of who it is that's in power, anytime you work around the constitutional system, the three-party system, separation, or the three-branch system, three branches, separation of powers, checks and balances. These are all things that we learned in, you know, social studies when we were 12.
Some of
in
us
large
did.
part, it doesn't work that way anymore. And we need it to, because that system was actually pretty smart. So, you know, the consolidation of power in the executive is, you know, it's kind of a loaded gun pointed at the people's heads.
Yes.
And we should all be probably equally, if not more, worried about taking that power away from the executive branch in total or in general, rather than just worrying about which individual it is that it's currently wielding that power right now.
I concur with that.
So, you know, if your team's guy has that power right now, you should still be saying, well, maybe these presidential elections wouldn't be so damn stressful if the president couldn't do all of this crap that they're not supposed to be able to do.
Yeah.
Like, what if we made Congress actually have the ability to declare war instead of, you know, the president being able to endlessly decide to drop bombs on whatever country they want to, without Congress weighing in. So it takes a little pressure off of, you know, worrying about who it is who has their finger on the button if the button's not so big.
Yeah.
And this is all well far afield of the Second Amendment context. So
But
this
still.
is me speaking, not Saf speaking. But
I agree. The sad part is like, so sometimes there's things that are important, like that. Okay, for example, I live in Texas. We have a massive immigration problem. I see it every single day, and it's been crazy, like just absolutely insane. I won't get into it on here, but we've been in through depths of this on prior podcasts. When I know that Trump made a bunch of executive orders to basically kind of push that back to stop a bunch of immigration from coming in, and then the next people, they remove all those executive orders, but those executive orders should have never had to be put in the first place. But the problem is Congress and the Senate will never do anything about it. It's like this. Beforehand, we had HR 2. That was with the Republican bill, meaning no immigrants could come in. And then later on, we had the next bill that everybody gets ragged on and say, well, the Congress wouldn't take up the bill, where it was like 3 Republicans and the rest of them were all Democrats saying, well, we'll let 5,000 illegals come in a day, right? And it's like, well, that does nothing. That's still over 1 million people a year, not to mention all the gotaways. So I understand the executive power. I do agree with you. I think it's got to go. And I think we have to force Congress and the Senate to quit being lazy ass bitches and do their fucking job. And I've been screaming this to the rooftops for so fucking long. And I like the fact that you said you're a libertarian. I'm very much a libertarian conservative, at the end of the day, a constitutionalist. But man, everything that you've talked about, you've given our audience so much information, and it's been in so much brighter of words than what we can
Us two fucking idiots here.
than what we can say. Me and John, we care about this stuff, so we pay attention to it a lot, but it just sounds so much better coming from an actual lawyer than two dumbasses. So we greatly appreciate it, man. It's been a blessing having you on. So
yes, really appreciate it. We finish off every episode by giving shout outs. Sometimes it's to sponsors, sometimes it's to gun stores that we buy from, sometimes it's to people that affected our lives this week or whatever it is. And we always like our guests to participate in that. Don never starts. So Don, what are your shout outs for the week?
Well, fuck, man. Mine's the Second Amendment Foundation, clearly.
That's why I went to you, because I knew you were going to say it.
We got Bill Sachs sitting right here, brother. I want to thank every single person that's out here fighting for our Second Amendment rights, and every single person that's going to go vote for their Second Amendment rights. So that's my shout out.
Awesome. So I've got an idea, and I'm doing it right now, man. This is like off the cuff, like we do everything else. So Bill, just so you know, we created a T-shirt about 4 weeks ago or so. It's called No Compromise, because we are done fucking compromising when it comes to our constitutional rights. And we are donating all of the profits from that T-shirt to Gun Owners of America. And because you have been such a pleasure and you have been so informative to our audience, we are going to create a No Compromise hat, and we will donate the profits from that to the Second Amendment Foundation.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, fellas.
Oh, yeah.
We know that you guys need it, and my lowly dues that I pay you guys every year are not enough to keep you fighting the good fight. So we want to do that for you guys. Shout out to our sponsors, 2A Watches. Thank you guys very much. Zemo for getting me through these long ass podcasts. I wasn't upper decking it this time, only lower decking it. But really appreciate you all. Bill, who do you want to shout out this week?
Ooh, okay. So I'm going to do 2 shout outs if I can, because I'm going to be greedy. So first shout out is going to be to Second Amendment Foundation's founder, Alan Gottlieb. So this year we are celebrating our 50th anniversary of Second Amendment Foundation, which is incredible. To think that we've been doing this work for longer than I've been alive, that Alan's been doing this work, and has laid such incredible groundwork for us, as the newbies coming in and, taking over the mantle here. There's such an incredible heritage here, over 250 cases over the years, currently involved in over 50. There's just an incredible legacy here at Second Amendment Foundation, and so definitely want to give Alan a shout out for making this all possible and getting this thing up and off the ground while I was still a twinkle in my father's eye. And then my second shout out, completely non-gun related whatsoever, is going to be to my local dog shelter animal rescue called Mainline Animal Rescue out in Phoenixville, PA. That's where all of my dogs have come from, and they do great work out there. And the other thing that I care about other than guns in this work is my dogs. So shout out to them for doing that good work.
We will put a link down in the description to the Phoenixville Animal Shelter.
Mainline
Animal Rescue. Awesome. We will put a link down there. I am a dog lover as well, and had a rescue dog until she passed away at 14 years old. So I feel you there, and I very, very much appreciate that. Thank you, Bill, so much for giving us your time. I know that it was a late call for you to come on.
I got my coffee. I'm good.
Hey, Bill, I do have just so all of our listeners know, where can they find you? If you want to just shout out your guys' Instagram, or if you want to give out your personal social media or email contacts, maybe somebody here is listening and they've ran into some issues and they might want to present you a case.
Yeah, absolutely. So Second Amendment Foundation is at saf.org. That's our main website. It's new and improved. You may have heard. Everybody's talking about it. They said it couldn't be done. We did it.
It's huge.
It's the best website. Trust me,
huge.
we know websites. Through the website, if you have a legal issue that is currently affecting you that you want to bring to our attention, we have a submit a case form, just a Google form on there that you can go in and put in all of your information, provide as many details as you can. That goes directly to my email. I review all of those and get in touch with people as best I can. So if you have an ongoing legal issue, if you think your rights have been violated and you'd like to contact us, we would encourage you to do that. We are on all of the major social medias. As if you just search for Second Amendment Foundation, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on LinkedIn, we are on Twitter. I don't think we do TikTok because we don't have anybody on staff yet under the age of 25. But hopefully that's coming soon. And yeah, but we're going to be launching some exciting new social media stuff, I think, in the coming months. So that's exciting. It's a great time to get on our social media. I think you're going to see that our content is really going to go from like great to double great. So we're excited about that. And then lastly, I'll shout out, we are involved in putting on the Gun Rights Policy Conference, also known as GRPC. That happens every year. It is actually coming up. It starts this coming Friday. It is in San Diego, California this year. It is a free event to participate in and attend. So we encourage folks, if not this year, because I appreciate that it's 72 hours from now, but in years coming up, we would love for you to show up at Gun Rights Policy Conference. It's an opportunity to kind of talk about all things Second Amendment advocacy related. There are lots of the attorneys that we work with, other well-known content creators and, big thinkers in the Second Amendment space that are there that you can listen to them talk and present and chat with them, at the mixers and things like that, and make all sorts of network connections and, really get involved in the activist space. And you can find out more information about GRPC also on SAF.org.
Heck yeah, man.
Count Don and I in next year for that.
Yeah, we're definitely showing up.
Oh, yeah. Be happy to have you.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Mr. Bill Sack from the Second Amendment Foundation, thank you so much. The other guy on top of me here, that is Don. I am John. We are the Liberty Goons, and we are
out.